Hey, what's up, everybody? Happy Christmas Eve. Hey, hi, Jake. How are you? The dog is right here. Hi. Um, hello, everybody, and happy Christmas Eve. If you are listening to this as it came out, I hope you all have a wonderful drive to wherever it is that you need to go, and maybe we can help you. Maybe we can help emotionally navigate you to your next destination. And I say emotionally navigate you because the guest that we have on this week is a philanthropist. She's a musician. She's a very intelligent person, and we get into emotions a lot. We get into psychology a lot. We just talk a lot of stuff, man. It was a very positive, very nice talk. The guest, of course, I'm talking about is Rae Lydia, as you saw in the description. And yeah, we had a great time. I hope you guys enjoy it. And we're going to open up this episode with one of her tracks. This is her song Hibernation off of her most recent EP, which you can find on Bandcamp. I don't remember if it's on Spotify or iTunes or anything like that, but it's definitely on Bandcamp for sure. Actually, I'll check right now and see if this bad boy... Oh, look at that. It is. Cool. So you can get it on Bandcamp too. It's off of her EP Gravitas, which came out in 2016. All right, guys. Enjoy. Happy holidays.
Stay here, who might miss me at all? I may just lay here waiting for the next fall. But hello world, it's nice to finally meet you. I've been hiding for the longest time. The sun is sweet, it's sugar on my lashes. I can't go back to to hide. All these games inside my head, I'd rather play with you instead. Hello world, it's nice to finally meet you. I've been hiding for the longest time. The sun is sweet, sugar on my lashes. I can't go back to sleep. Now the sun is setting low, and it is time for me to go. I can't help but think how happy I am, and by daylight I'll be sure to do it again. Please don't go back to sleep. Oh, please don't go back to sleep. Please don't go back to sleep.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Getting Stoked. I'm your host, Matthew Slusser, as always. I think I'm going to stop saying that. Someone told me a while ago, you need to put your name in every episode. But, like, it's a podcast. Everyone can see. But, yeah, I guess. So this is kind of the... this is more of a getting better than it is getting stoked. I'm merging them all like into one feed from now on, as opposed to just having the two. So this is going to be one of those, but it's going to be all over the place. I'm just going to call it Getting Stoked because we're going to be talking music and everything else. With me, I have someone who I've been following online for quite a while without ever actually meeting up with or anything like that. My relationship with her so far has just been missing shows that she's played. But with me today, I have the wonderful Rae Lydia. What up?
What up?
Is that how you go now? We just go under Rae Lydia?
Yeah, I kind of think of myself as Rae, and then like my solo-ness is Rae Lydia.
Got it. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So that's perfect. We can
It's
use
literally
that for now.
everything Rae.
Dude, have you did you hear the most recent King Princess record?
Oh my god.
With the one that has that's the one that has Talia on it, right?
Yeah.
Fuck, that's such a good song.
So the song that I'm like obsessed with off that record is 1950, which
Yeah.
is like the hit that's come from it, right? But like King Princess really makes me very happy because they're a queer individual.
Mm-hmm.
They're like a genderqueer individual. And 1950 is like very obviously taking information and being like, hey, I'm definitely not straight, you guys.
Uh-huh.
Super not straight. And it's just a beautiful song.
Yeah, it's a great. That's a super solid EP.
Yeah.
I
was very happy with it.
I don't follow like radio necessarily, so I don't know what's popular. I have no idea if she's popular or not, but it's great.
I think she might be. I don't know.
I know she's popular as far as streams go, but I didn't know if she was like had hits or anything like that necessarily.
I think 1950 is getting there, but I think we have a lot more to see from King Princess.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, she's phenomenal. This year has been really good for like synth pop and electronic music and stuff like that.
Speaking of which, like ever since you had me, like you asked me like, who are you listening to right now? And I sent you some information. And then like literally that week I learned of a new artist that I really love.
Which is who?
Billie Eilish.
Okay, I've heard that name. I've seen that name around.
It's coming up. It's coming up quite a bit. And that's when like I've been kind of obsessed with Billie Eilish.
Do they have an album out this year?
They have a bunch of singles that they've been putting out. And so if you check on Apple Music,
cool.
whatever. But it kind of reminds me of like early Lorde, but then she actually delves into her own sound, which makes me happy.
Got it. What happened to Lorde?
Great question.
Did Lorde just kind of fall off? She put out a couple albums and that was it?
I mean, if I was Lorde, I'd probably do that.
Yeah.
You know, like take some time to write my next one and really get into what I'm feeling.
Adele kind of did the same thing.
Yeah, Adele definitely does the same thing, and then she comes out with amazing albums like 19 and 25.
Right. I heard 21. That was the only one but I got really into that.
Yes.
That was the one, right? That was the really big one.
That was the big one.
Yeah. That was.
But she's been doing some really good stuff then too. Since
yeah,
then too.
She's great. Have you seen? I think one of my favorite videos on the internet is the Adele butter dance.
What?
It's a video of so it was just an art project thing. There's just this lady in heels like walking on huge bricks of butter, like the size of like housing brick and mortar bricks of butter.
What?
And she's just standing on them and she's walking on them and crushing them, and then she eventually like slips all over the butter and falls all over the place, gets back up and continues. Now the original video for some kind of weird like art project didn't have music behind it, and you just heard like the stark like of the butter, but someone put Someone Like You behind it. So it looks like this really weird interpretive dance.
That's pretty funny. I mean, I could interpret that as like, you know, rising to the cream of the crop.
Right.
Top of the butter.
Right. I'm looking at Billie Eilish. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I think it's Eilish or Eilish.
Eilish.
I really have zero idea how to pronounce it.
A lot of singles this year. Holy cow.
A lot of singles. She was kind of a dark horse that came out of the woodwork at the very end.
Yeah, it seems like it. That's pretty cool. 16-year-old.
I know.
Global pop
It
phenomenon.
makes me a little bit angry that she's only 16 and she's doing this, but at the same time, I remember where I was at 16, and I would not want to have the notoriety
right
that she has when I was 16.
Right. I think about that kind of stuff all the time, about how like I used to compare myself too often to people who were successful. Like for instance, I remember like Kevin Smith is one of my favorite people, and he made Clerks when he was 22.
Yeah.
So I remember being like 22, like, okay, this is my year. And then I didn't I didn't make Clerks. But I know, I think about it, fucking martial artist Bruce Lee was like in his late 20s after like just changing the world.
But then you also have to remember that, like, you know, Oprah didn't become Oprah until she was in her 40s.
Right.
You know, same with Tina Fey. You know, when she was in her 30s, she was still working as a front desk person at the YMCA.
Really? I didn't know that. I thought she was at least writing for SNL or something.
I mean, she wasn't even there yet.
That's crazy, man.
So, I mean, I'm constantly looking for that kind of validation.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I did that when I dropped out of high school junior year, at the end of my junior year. And I remember looking up on the school computer during computer class, like successful high school dropouts, and the list is super
Johnny
expansive. Depp. It's an awesome. My favorite one was Marlon Brando.
Yep.
Marlon Brando was expelled from high school for riding a motorcycle through the hallway, which is like so
Marlon Brando.
Right.
Marlon Brando.
Yeah, I unfortunately didn't do that. I look back now and I almost wish that I would have transgressed more in high school than I did. I didn't do a whole lot of rebelling when I was in high school, aside from just not doing my work.
Yeah.
And like,
that's a little different.
Yeah, because when I dropped out anyway and got my GED and moved on with my life, I was like, dude, I could have done so much more fun stuff, and it doesn't matter because you're only 15, 16 years old. There are no consequences really, unless you're like,
you've got less consequences than you would if you were an adult doing those same things.
Right.
Like, I definitely got into trouble when I was in high school, but it was always like trouble that like didn't hurt anybody.
Right.
For example, you mentioned like Marlon Brando riding his motorcycle through the halls. I wore Heelys my freshman year of high school.
Flew through the halls.
Legit. It was like, well, here's there she goes.
Right.
Bye.
What year were Heelys still a thing?
They really were.
They were? Okay.
Yeah, I was a freshman in high school. So I think I was 13.
Okay, yeah. Wow. No, you had to be like 14.
I graduated when I was 16.
Really? You just graduated early? You just jumped ahead, or what?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I was held back a year in kindergarten because I was just like, I was too young when school started because I was born in August.
Same thing happened to my brother.
Yeah. So the idea of graduating at 16 is crazy.
It's not fun to have to ask your parents for permission when you're off at college.
Yeah, that does sound. What happened? Did you
Luckily
just excel?
for me, like my birthday is like in the summer.
Yeah.
And that's why I was kind of in that scenario in the first place. Like, so I used to live in California, and they were going to try to push me up a grade, but then they took me to Arizona instead and were like, oh, honors program is fine, which it isn't, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just awful. Don't know why I did that.
You're
But
good.
Yeah, so.
That's crazy. Yeah, I had terrible, like, I was the kid in school who, like, all of the teachers loved me, but they all hated me because they knew I
didn't do the work.
Right. They knew I was intelligent.
But it's that disappointing, like, I'm disappointed in you.
They knew I was smart, but I didn't want to read the books that they had us read. I wanted to read the books that I wanted to read. And and I wish I would have followed directions more in retrospect. I feel like it would have given me a discipline that I didn't learn until I was on my own.
Okay,
many
so
years
this
later.
is interesting because you're saying that you wish that you had
Right.
participated in more discipline, but then also you wish that you had been a little bit more boisterous and rambunctious.
Because I feel like instead of doing either of those things, I just kind of like existed and floated through. I had like some friends I was just miserable, and I didn't. My transgressiveness was just like not doing the work and reading Kurt Vonnegut instead.
Oh God, I love Kurt Vonnegut.
He's too.
Literally, "So It Goes" is like my catchphrase.
It's great.
It's good for everything.
I got into Vonnegut hard. Well, my English teacher, freshman or sophomore year English teacher, gave us. We all read Harrison Bergeron.
Okay.
So I had never read Slaughterhouse-Five or anything like that. My introduction to Vonnegut was his short story, Harrison Bergeron, and I got really into that. And then I just fell down from there. I got really into Slapstick, which is a book that a lot of people don't like. I like it a lot.
I haven't even read that one.
He doesn't like it. He rated because he did in the back of one of his books. He rates all of his books. He gives them all grades.
I would do that.
Yeah, and he gave Slapstick like a D- or something like that.
We don't want to have favorites of our works, but we do.
Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah.
I have favorites for everything that I've ever worked on. That's why it's so funny when you look up like I think it's Noisy has that the website Noisy has bands rate their own albums. And that's always heartbreaking.
Oh, I bet.
Because there's always like they like tell you why they hate the record that you love so much, and then you can't hear it not
the same
like that.
way all over again.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's a bummer, man. Like, how much work do you have enough work out at this point to be able to look back and kind of rate the things that you've done up until this point?
100%. For the most part, I have some favorites of those that I like already. The stuff that I show to people are my favorites. Like, I have a backlog of stuff that is never going to see the light of day because
the vault, the Prince vault.
Kinda, yeah. Because I just, I don't feel comfortable showing it to people. It's not up to my own standards, so why would I expect it to be up to anybody else's standards? And then of those that I'm willing to show people, of course I have favorites of those, even though like they're all like my children and I shouldn't have favorites, but I really do.
Yeah. No, totally. And it's natural to hate your children too, I feel like.
I'll tell you when I have them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I just have 2 fur babies that take all of my attention.
What do you have?
I have 2 cats. Yeah, so
I'm allergic, deathly allergic. Like,
well,
I'll die. It's bad.
It's a good thing I'm not part feline.
Right. Yeah. It's just I can be in a house that hasn't had cats in it in months, and they've deep cleaned the whole thing, and I'll still get messed up.
You still get it, huh?
Totally. So when did you start getting like what pushed you? A lot of people have different things as to why they get into music and art and artistry, but what, as opposed to that, what made you kind of get serious about it?
Yeah, I would love to talk about that.
Do it. This is my invitation in the form of a question.
RSVP. Right. Yeah. So when I was growing up, I've been singing for longer than I could speak. I grew up in a very musical household. Learned to harmonize really early. Started off on piano for a year, and then moved to violin and bass and guitar, and then ukulele. And I've been singing the entire time. And all of this has been like just really like a great creative outlet for me, and I've always written music that way. But, when I decided to go into college, I was like, okay, it's time to get serious, And so I ended up majoring in biomedical science with a minor in chemistry.
Very interesting. Wow, what made you want to do that?
Security
Job security
and helping people.
Right.
Like my drive seems to really be helping people in whatever way I possibly can. And sometimes to my detriment,
it's
pouring out more than you have.
It's generally a pretty self-sacrificial game.
It is, though.
It is.
But I was super willing to do it, and I was my 3rd year in to college, so I was in my junior year, and I over the summer, from the summer of 2013. I was off on a volunteer pre-medical trip to Nicaragua.
Okay. Wow. What was that like?
That's a whole nother conversation. Nicaragua. Yeah, they would always correct me. They're like, no, you're speaking Spanish like a Mexican. You have to speak it differently.
Right.
Like, that's the only way I know how.
I just think of Beavis and Butthead. Because like Nicaragua. Like every time I hear the word it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Continue.
Nica. I love that place. We traveled to different cities, and we saw at least 50 patients a day and treated like 50 patients a day, giving them basic medical care. And I got to hear a fetal heartbeat for the first time. I got to provide vaccinations for the first time. Like, it was a really amazing trip. And then on the very last day of my trip, I got a call on one of the cell phones that they have for emergency uses. And I didn't know what was going on. I called back. We played phone tag a couple times with my family until, finally I got on the phone with my mom, and she let me know that my younger brother, who's 15 months younger than me, had passed.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was when you were traveling?
That was while I was abroad, yeah.
So how old would they have been at that point?
He was 19.
Okay.
And I was 20.
Got it.
Yeah.
Just an accident?
He overdosed.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. That epidemic, that opioid epidemic is just, it's something people don't like to talk about, but it's something that's ravaging the entire country.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. It's way worse than the war on drugs ever could have been.
Yeah.
Right. And
exactly.
it couldn't be any worse. It's like it's like Mexican gang wars all over the country, but like in silent bottles that no
totally
one's
silent because like I hadn't even known he had a problem when I left. The last time I saw him, he was dropping me off at the airport.
Right.
Damn. Yeah, it was life shattering.
And how old were you at this point?
20.
20. Okay, so you're 20. You're traveling. You just get devastating news.
I think I might have been barely 21 actually.
Okay.
But yeah.
So all of that is happening at once, and you're not even in the comforts of home. You're with tons of
I had to
strangers.
immediately hop in a taxi to get on 3 different planes to get home, and then from there to meet my mom to go to Texas where they were having him shipped so that my grandpa could get him buried in one of the family plots because they weren't expecting his death. Nobody was.
Yeah.
So he had to kind of give up his plot.
Was that something that just like with a lot of people just like he was managing pain to begin with, or was it just like a recreational thing?
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Nobody told me. He didn't tell me. Were
you guys living together?
No, I mean, I was in college and he was, kind of trying to find his way.
I got you, yeah.
Yeah. And he was apparently, he was trying to get help and he had gone through rehab and, or at least he had gone through one of those 24-hour detox places, but they churned him out within 24 hours without anything. And then within 24 hours of that, he was dead.
Got it. Okay.
So
what was some of the first kind of lifelong effects that had on you?
Well, I think the biggest thing was that, first of all, it was sudden.
Right.
He died 5 years ago. This is the 5th year that I've had to live without him in my life.
Okay. Got it.
We were raised like twins, literally like Irish twins, 15 months apart. So just getting my head wrapped around the fact that he's gone, like he's actually gone, was probably the hardest part. Because it was so sudden, and I would have named off 20 different people that I thought would have died before he did.
Did you have any kind of understanding of death close to you before that?
I mean, I'd had a grandparent die.
Right, yeah.
I'd seen my parent, like my friends, maybe they'll have a grandparent die, or
but nothing
their
like
parent
that
might
really,
die, but nothing that close.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had a friend, somebody my age, really die.
How did that kind of alter your perception on life and death?
It pushed me very quickly into what would otherwise be, I think, a midlife crisis. But it was pushed.
A quarter life crisis.
It became a quarter life crisis.
Right.
Yeah. And I was in so he died in July, and then my last first semester of college started in August.
Damn. And did you go?
I had to consider whether or not I wanted to push through it, but I didn't have anywhere else to go if I hadn't pushed through it. So I decided to push through it. And I kind of stuffed everything down and focused on my studies. I got the highest grades those couple of semesters than I'd ever gotten because I was literally just depressed as all get out and had nothing else to focus on.
Right.
And then it was like winter break, like that December. They give you like 2 weeks. And I stayed in my closet the entire time writing.
Yeah.
Writing songs, writing nothing, scribbling, drawing, just getting it all out, and literally just like eating and sleeping in that closet.
Yeah. Well, the first, I feel like one of the biggest like emotional hallmarks that a person goes through, and often a lot of people don't really even notice this, and I've never heard anyone talk about it before, but the first winter after a tragic event really paints things different colors. Like
Completely.
It's very strange. Like any winter after anything tragic that had happened to me was always very fraught with like music that I'll remember for the rest of my life, or certain smells and sound. Like it just there's something so extreme about the winter, and winter time, even in Arizona, has such a specifically peculiar kind of
effect on people
that after a tragedy like that, first winter is just like,
oh yeah. And winters after that, I mean,
right.
like every holiday season can be incredibly stressful for families who've lost and haven't been able to cope with it, because you're missing that person, right around the time when it matters the most, when everybody's trying to be jolly,
right.
and you're kind of like, right, I'm over here.
I mean, it's good to be around people and to be around your family in times like that, unless you have a tumultuous relationship with your family, and then it's a little worse.
Yeah, and then it gets complicated. But that's where chosen family really comes in.
Yeah, no, it's really important. Chosen family is really Friendsgivings, things like that.
Cannot emphasize enough how important it is to have a good support system.
Well, yeah, I mean exactly. You can't defeat anything, on your. I mean, some people can defeat some things on their own, but. It's
never really on your own, though.
No, exactly. It's never really on your own.
You're always building off of someone else.
Right. There's no such thing as a self-help book, for instance. Someone wrote that and helped you with that.
That's really true. That's really true.
No matter what, you're having to pull insight from other people and other things around you.
Yeah, very true.
And there's no harm in that. There's a lot of people who I know who are too kind of strong-headed to feel comfortable with that. My father was like that. A lot of people's fathers are like that, especially from previous generations. And it's very, very it's hard, and it's detrimental, and it just makes things even worse. I
mean, growing up with an authoritarian parent,
right.
that is the worst thing you could do for your emotions.
I mean, and as a parent does have a duty to be like an authority figure, but there's a difference between like being an authority figure and
being
just
authoritarian.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Very different.
Yeah,
very different.
Did you grow up in that kind of like a military household?
Luckily, I did not, but I'm I'm reading a quote unquote self-help book right now that's all about emotional neglect and different kinds of parents that you can have that have been emotionally neglectful of the kid, and that doesn't mean like abusive or anything.
No, yeah, for sure.
But it just means that like they weren't attuned to what the child really needed,
right? And
because of that, the child grew up either, not getting the structure that they needed, or feeling lost, or not really knowing who they themselves are.
Totally.
So, it's not necessarily about what the parents did, but what they didn't do.
Yeah.
And so just reading that gives me a lot of insight into that. Oh, I think it's just called like emotionally neglectful. I can literally look it up right now. Yeah.
It's interesting, man. There's a lot of books out there that I wouldn't even consider self-help books. They're just like roadmaps, almost emotional.
It's called Running on Empty: Overcome Your Childhood Emotional Neglect.
I feel like I've heard Running on Empty sounds. Who wrote that?
Running on Empty.
Right. Who wrote?
Jonas. It's spelled Jonice.
Okay, Jonice.
So, Janice Webb.
Okay, interesting.
PhD.
Sounds like a good book.
So far it's been interesting.
Do you read a lot of stuff like that? Like a lot of nonfiction, like psychology stuff?
Absolutely. I either go for the sci-fi stuff or the nonfiction stuff.
What's some of your favorite, like some of the books that have really impacted you as far as the nonfiction side of things go?
Nonfiction side of things? Julia Child's cookbook actually was one of the biggest ones. Have you ever heard of Julia Child?
No.
She, gosh, how do you explain Julia Child to a person? She was around in I believe it was the 50s.
Okay.
And she kind of revolutionized French cooking for American home cooks.
Okay. So
don't crowd the mushrooms.
So wait, it's really just like it's actually just a cookbook?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, for instance, isn't actually about.
Literally, I think it's because in its own work it is Zen, because literally you're going through
Okay.
each step and you have to go step by step.
That's cool.
And,
That's really cool.
And for me, cooking is very meditative.
Got it. Okay, cool. So cooking is interesting. I can't cook. I'm about to do a lot more cooking here pretty soon, but I'm really bad about cooking. There's a lot of great books. Like there's this amazing book that I read that I always tell people to read, which is The War of Art, which is phenomenal. It's The War of Art is this really short, quick read, just about how, like, think about all the things that keep you from doing the things that you want to do. Think about like that feeling that you have that feeling that
anxiety.
Right, yeah, not just anxiety, but like that feeling that you have where it's like, I'll do that tomorrow, or like I'm not gonna do this. Think about, so what it does is it takes the things within you that keep you from achieving, and it refers to it as something called resistance.
Yeah.
And the whole book is about defeating resistance, and it frames it in such a way that instead of seeing it as kind of what it is, which is this multitudes of chemical abstractions that are keeping you from the different things, all based on your childhood and your development and your brain.
Blah, 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 blah.
Right. It's taking all of those things and personifying it as resistance. Now this is a thing. Now that we have a name for this, we can look at this as one singular foe and kind of overcome it like that.
And
so
naming your emotions is the first step.
Right. So it's like, oh yeah, you know what, I think I'm gonna do this. Fuck you, resistance. So
I see you.
It's really interesting. It's a really cool little book.
I just read a book called Unfuck Yourself, and it has
I've heard of that.
same
What is that? Unfuck yourself.
Unfuck yourself. Yeah. And it has the same kind of idea where it's like you gotta recognize that if you can't say that you're going to do it, you have to be doing it. Otherwise you're constantly just going to be in the I'm going to phase.
Right,
I will do this. But will you really? If you're not already doing it, what are you doing?
Oh man, Gary John Bishop. That's cool. Yeah, I've heard about this book
He's
before.
great. He's Irish. He gives no fucks. He's like, I'm not going to give you sunshine and rainbows and candy canes up your ass. I'm going to tell you how it is.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have been doing that lately. There's a hunger for that in our society right now. That people are starting to get kind of tired of the kind of masturbatory nature of kind of like our like millennial parent, like the parents of millennials, with this kind of like yeah, we understand, yes, potential, we should unlock our potential, but it kind of went too far where now everyone wants a little bit more of that reality. They're trying to get kind of corralled back into some. It's just hard. Like I feel like responsibility is one of the most important things that a person like can have, discipline and responsibility, and those are two things that are lacking right now. So that's why you're seeing these motivational speakers or intellectuals and lecturers start to get really popular, because people are like, okay, I need this back. I need this kind of a father figure or a mother figure to kind of look over.
I think that's always been the case.
Yeah?
Yeah. I think there might be more evidence of it as of late because we have the advent of the internet. Mm-hmm. But I feel that there's always been great parents, and even in great parents, there's always something missing.
Oh, yeah, of course.
People are always going to need to find something else. You know, parents can't be everything.
Right.
They have to be at the very beginning. But, you know, if a parent does their job correctly, then the child has more than just their parents to rely on.
Yeah. I feel like this, one of the interesting things about like this generation, like our generation specifically, is just this kind of sense of, there's more loopholes now in everything than ever before. It seems like everyone's just kind of like, there is no, and that's a good thing. Like we've broken out of a lot of the societal norms and standards, and that's good. Mm-hmm. But now we're kind of like, okay, so what am I supposed to do now?
Yeah.
And everyone's kind of trying to figure that out.
Yeah. I think that's very, like, I'm of the opinion that this generation really isn't that much different from the last and the one before it and the one before that. Mm. What is different is the environment and where the country is right now and how it can actually sustain these people. Mm-hmm. So I think millennials have been dealt a very interesting hand.
Right. I see. I was on that train for a long time of being like, you know, we should stop talking down about millennials and blah, blah, blah. But I don't know. As of recently, I've been looking around at it a lot and being like, I don't know. We're a pretty fucking entitled generation as a whole.
Maybe you're just getting older and grumpier.
Maybe. No, I might be getting older and grumpier. My Twitter is definitely evidence of that. But I don't know. There is definitely a part of me that wonders if, like, because I've heard that the next generation, like Generation Z, is going to be really fucking interesting.
The next generation's always going to be interesting. Right. That's kind of my point, though, is like, it's just cycles. Right. You know?
Everyone rebels against their parents.
Exactly.
And then there's only so many different ways that you can rebel.
Exactly.
So it just kind of tumbles
forward. Exactly.
So another thing that I know about you is that you're interested in homelessness and homeless populations. And
I really, really am.
You really am. So where did that kind of start from?
Well, let's dive right into that, shall we? I don't talk about this very much, just because I actually feel a certain amount of, protectiveness for my parents. I don't want anybody to think that they didn't do their best. My parents really did their best. Yeah. But to a certain extent, when you've got the economic collapse happening at the same time as, the two parents are also losing their jobs at the same time that divorce is happening.
You're talking about like late 2000s, right?
I'm talking about yeah, exactly. In the aughts,
rough.
It was rough.
Yeah, it
man.
was rough.
Yeah. Yeah. To be perfectly frank, so
totally. My father lost his job after 15 years when General Motors got bought out. Like he took to by another country and. So we lost everything. That's why we live here.
Yep. My dad, my brother and I were born in Nevada, and then my dad found a job that had more security in California. And then as soon as he went to that job, the one in Nevada went away.
Right.
And he found something that was better in Arizona. He moved to that, and the one in California went away.
Yeah.
And then it caught up with him.
It was
in
crazy.
Arizona, he couldn't keep a job, and it wasn't even his fault. Like, it wasn't anybody's fault. It just kind of was what it was. And I found myself without a home.
For how long? With your whole family?
It wasn't my whole family. So this was after my parents divorced. My mom was under an immense amount of pressure, and she was unmedicated. And so it wasn't physically safe for me at home. And then my dad, in a sort of a survival instinct, kind of glommed onto whatever strong woman was available. So he went through like 3 different engagements in a very short period of time. And those places didn't have rooms for my brother and I. Like, we literally were not factored into that equation at all.
Right.
So.
How old were you guys at the time?
I was 15, maybe 16. Yeah. My brother was 14. And I think that's right around the time, like, he started using.
Okay.
Though I have no idea.
Right.
Yeah. I was carrying around 2 bags. I had my book bag, which had everything in it, and I had my bag of clothes and phone charger and toiletries and things that I just kind of took with me to and from school. And I would stay at a friend's place. I stayed at one friend's place of mine for literally like a month. That was the longest that I stayed in one period of time. But I was constantly moving between friends' houses because I couldn't go to my mom's house. Physically wasn't safe, and I didn't have a place at my dad's house. And after a while, like, he was in so much depression after his 3rd fiance left him that he just literally told me, I can't take care of you right now.
Okay, got it. So you're just kind of in the middle of all of this couch surfing
and trying to apply for colleges at the same time.
Right. Well, that's good that you were at least doing that. You were still
that was my life raft. That's why I said, like, I couldn't really go back anywhere, you know. And there was a couple of times that I had to stay in a park.
Mm-hmm. I've never had to do that. I feel really lucky for that. I know a lot of people.
Well, Arizona's nice and warm, so at least there's that, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, that's true, I guess.
Yeah.
Fuck those days, though.
So that's why homelessness is like such an incredibly personal thing to me. Mm-hmm. It's because, like, when I was in high school, I was part of that population, and it's very invisible, you know. Like, I literally was just spending nights at my friends' houses as much as possible to get in a shower and a meal and
the thing that I hate the most about
parenting.
One of the things I hate most is when people say stuff like, "Oh, I don't want to give them money; they're just going to buy drugs." Because I'm like, oh, okay, so that's like saying like, "Oh, I'm not going to give them money; they're sick."
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Like that's like if the same person said those two different things, one of those things you would have a problem with. Why wouldn't you have a problem with the other one? The other thing is, these people aren't investments. Like, it's not about where they're going to spend your money.
No.
It's about do your due diligence as you see fit to the people around you.
Yep.
And if you feel like this is someone who you like want to help, then you shouldn't be deterred by something like that.
Absolutely. I honestly think that like when we look at people as non-people, when we look at them as non-human and somebody who doesn't deserve to have their own agency or their own choices, I mean, homeless people are real. That's they're human. Right. They're literally just people like you and me who've come across some hard times, and
a lot of them are mentally ill, though. That's the other thing, like severely mentally ill.
So am I, man.
Nah, yeah, but that's different, though. You know what I mean?
It is and it isn't. It's all about like the resources that you have access to.
Right. I guess I wonder how like what? Functioning versus non-functioning. Yeah. So like, yeah, it's just one of those things of like what. Like whenever I see someone who's, you know, like up there in age, I always wonder like what were they like when they were 18, when they were 20? Like I have a feeling they weren't walking around talking to themselves.
I mean, you never know. You never really know. We all talk to ourselves to a certain extent, but like when you're treated as invisible for so long, as we do,
right?
You know, it's kind of uncomfortable to look at somebody who's asking for help and tell them no. So you literally, like, a lot of our population just ignores.
Right.
And when you've been ignored for that long, like, are you even real anymore to yourself?
And it's hard to deal with. A lot of people just don't know what to do or what to say, or they feel uncomfortable, or they feel nervous, or whatever. There's a lot of stigma and a lot of things.
I would give some advice here. I would say the best thing that you could do, regardless of whether or not you have something material to give, is to give acknowledgement.
Right.
Just be like, hey, man, it's hot outside. How are you doing today?
Right.
How's it going?
Yeah.
You know?
But
just acknowledging them.
Yeah, that's good advice. You have to be careful because you might just get like an ear beating for an hour about someone's life,
because they need to talk.
Yeah, they need to talk, and then you open yourself up to them, and you never know when you're talking about fucking anything.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Phoenix people are very interesting.
You don't have to tell me. I busk on those streets.
Right. Like it's like people are. I always see like homeless people fighting behind trunk space. It's like, fuck, dude, this is crazy.
Yeah. And like, not everybody's like that, but
of course not.
But a lot unfortunately are.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I was thinking the same thing as you were, like, how do I help these people? How do I help people who when I can kind of like barely help myself and keep myself above water monetarily? Like, I obviously can't do that much. So what can I do? And I was thinking about it, and I remembered that when I was in high school, you know, and this was happening, music was not a very common thing to have, or at least it was very dependent on your environment.
Right, of course. Yeah.
You know, you could walk around a mall and you could hear some radio, maybe. If you were in a car, you could hear some radio. Passing cars, you could hear some radio. If you had an instrument that was easy to carry, maybe. But for the most part, like, you didn't get access to live shows. You don't get access to radio that you can choose, or CDs or tape players, or...
It depends on your environment. Yeah, I mean,
it totally depends on your environment.
Not everybody had iPods or CD players
or anything to charge them with.
Right, exactly.
You know? So something I was thinking about was, what can I do to provide music to people, because that's really a very healing aspect. I personally believe that music is a universal language that can heal.
Yeah.
In ways that logic really can't.
Right.
You know?
Logic doesn't really have a whole lot of healing property.
No, unless you're talking yourself
unless
into
you're trying
or out of something.
Right. Unless you're trying to ground yourself in some way. It's very hard for logic to really
heal.
I strive to be a more logical person than I am an emotional person, because I feel like my emotions, it's an unbalanced thing. But like when I'm if I'm extremely anxious, or I'm having some kind of OCD episode or something like that, I can't just repeat truisms to myself and
Yeah.
logic to myself.
Yeah.
And, oh yeah, you're right.
No,
Like,
music
doesn't work that
helps
way.
with music helps
Right,
a lot with
exactly.
that. Absolutely. It puts you in a space. It helps you experience something outside of your head.
Right.
And so what I'm doing, and I literally just had my first meeting with the Vibrant City cohort, which is funded by the city of Tempe yesterday. I got a grant acceptance. I wrote this entire freaking grant, and it took forever, and it was amazing. But the grant proposal was accepted, and so
what is this for? What is
it's
it?
called the Rae Lydia Project.
No, but what is it? Who you working with again?
The city of Tempe. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, they have a whole there was even a measure that was passed. I think it was like years ago, but a measure was passed saying that citizens of Tempe, a certain amount of taxes would go towards the arts, and so that is where that is coming from. And so the cohort, the Vibrant City grant, is the one that I applied for and got, and the cohort is a group of like-minded individuals who all got those grants and are moving toward, making them larger than they otherwise would be.
So what do you do in this? How does this work?
So the Rae Lydia Project aims to bring music to homeless and hungry populations.
Okay.
So I am reaching out to various food distribution centers in Tempe.
Shelters. Do some shelter
There
shows.
can be shelters. It can be places like food banks. I wanted to bring in St. Vincent de Paul, but they're actually in Phoenix, so that's going to have to be not with the grant money that I get. But basically, yeah, the idea of going to shelter shows and
That'd be awesome. A shelter show is such a good idea.
Thank you.
That'd be
I
rad.
appreciate it. Basically, like bringing my PA and bringing in musician teachers to not only perform while people are eating, but also hold like a little songwriter music session immediately afterward so that people can actually participate.
That sounds really nice. Look at you getting involved in the community. That's a beautiful sentiment for our community too. I've never heard of an idea like that before.
I'm full of good ideas.
I can't believe they like that the city gave you money for that.
Yeah, me either.
That's crazy.
Well,
good for them. I guess it's a progressive
It was
city.
a
It's
long
Tempe.
ass fucking proposal, so I hope they took it. But
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, luckily Tempe, because the college is here, so it's pretty like.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing, right? So I was talking to Julie Akerley, who's in charge of the cohort this year, and she was saying like, yeah, ASU has a lot of the arts, but college students graduate and then they move away.
Right. Yeah.
We need to try to keep it here,
Right.
And so that's what this whole thing is for.
Yeah, it's weird, man. Phoenix, Tempe, it's interesting. I guess people generally do kind of move out of Tempe after college. I've noticed there's not a whole lot of like over 30-year-old people who own a house in Tempe.
And if they do, they're a little jaded.
Right.
Yeah.
They're a little jaded, or they're just like holding on to their college years past past the due date.
You're like, dude, stop doing kickflips. You can't handle another broken hip.
Right. Yeah, no, I hear people like at where I work all the time. Like I have this guy who's like 31, 32, and he's talking about moving to Tempe from Phoenix or whatever, and everyone just gives him shit all the time. Like, oh yeah, you're gonna move back to Tempe, you're gonna hang out at Casey Moore's, you old man.
Yeah,
like
exactly. And you know what? It's a very welcoming environment.
It's great.
But honestly, that's the kind of dichotomy you get. You get
Right.
very young folks, and you get older folks who have deliberately stuck around to
Right.
hang around the young crowd. It's not a place where you go to settle down.
It's not.
You know?
No, it's not.
just not.
I don't know if it. Do you think it could be, or is it just too fast? Like the momentum is just. It's all built towards younger people.
I certainly can't predict the future.
Right.
I think it's entirely dependent upon what we put back into it.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I could see a lot of people sticking around as far because there's a real kind of extended adolescence that this generation
that's
has.
true. Okay, that's for sure. Like
Yeah.
there was a study that was done, and it made me feel better about myself, where it was like you're officially like this generation is officially out of what we would consider an adolescence, like
Right.
on your own, self-sustainable, out of school, working for yourself. possibly married, getting married with kids. 26.
Right.
It's no longer 18.
Right.
It's 26 now. And that makes me feel better, but it's also like, shit, we get a very late start.
Yeah, I mean, which I guess I'm so curious to see what like we're going to be like as old people looking back. Like, because I do, but that's like to bring me back to my point earlier. That's what I kind of mean about like our generation lacks a lot of the responsibility and discipline than what came before.
That's where I'll disagree.
Okay.
I believe that our generation has picked up responsibility up the wazoo.
Okay.
And that is what is keeping us back.
How so?
I mean, student loan debt just for one-off, right? Taking care of our parents while we're also trying to get out on our own.
Is that not something that previous generations had to deal with?
I mean, if you had enough capital, you could generally send your parents to the best, care to whatever they could afford. And now it's much less that. You're seeing a lot less of the nuclear family and a lot more of 3-generation families where you've got the grandparents, the parents, and the kids all living under one roof because nobody can afford to live separately.
Right.
These sorts of things have propelled our generation into picking up responsibility that was sort of shaken off from our previous generation, but we're given more flack for not being at the same place where our parents were at our age.
Right. Yeah, like I definitely see that. It's interesting. We have so much, but at the same time, like think about like entrepreneurship for example is one of those things where one of the things that I think this generation has wrong is that you can't just like market on your phone and then like call yourself a businessman or like.
Well, that's true.
It's not how but I feel like our generation does a lot of that in various ways, and that's kind of why we're another reason we're looked at as like, not getting picked up as fast as previous generations.
I mean, you could sort of say the same thing about the printed word. You could sort of say the same thing about radio.
Yeah.
Television.
Yeah,
focusing
dead.
much
Radio's
more
dying.
on media.
Right.
Than really actually putting effort into the business, and that's going to be true no matter what generation you're in.
That's definitely true.
But it's so much more well documented now.
Yeah, radio is a weird one. Radio is like people are just holding. I'm surprised that radio existed after satellite. And now satellite is even going away, and radio is still like, no, we can still be relevant.
I don't know. I have no idea where that's going to go.
It's weird.
I know because we're on a podcast, but
Right.
also like I've got a radio show scheduled later this month with Radio Phoenix. But one of the only reasons that they're
Internet
able
radio.
to do that,
Right.
yeah, internet radio, exactly. And they stream on, or they are also played on other radio stations. But I think you're right. I think the main reason that those stations still exist, besides the fact that some people are poor and just can't afford to purchase things,
Right.
is because it's notorious. It's
Right.
it's oh, you were on the radio. What station?
I know, yeah. Right.
You know?
People, it's still like a really big deal. Like you like I remember when I was in a band, we would get played on the radio, and then we would. It was just kind of weird because like we would add it to our like I guess our like press kit or whatever that we've been played on this, but it felt like there was some kind of, it was almost like a weird shame where like I'm putting it on this and I'm making it look really cool, but we gained 0 from this.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't get more likes, we didn't get more show attendance. So this the only thing that this has is like the aesthetic of we were on the radio, but it doesn't really mean anything.
Except it does, because to those who believe in
Right,
that aesthetic, then it's
exactly.
still,
Right.
So like, for example, when I was on Radio Phoenix a couple months ago,
Which I love, by the way. I've been on Radio Phoenix before. They're really great.
I
over
love
there.
Radio
I've been
Phoenix.
on-
They're
have you been on
great.
with Yab Yum?
I haven't
guys?
yet. I was working with DJ Hockey
Huggy Chuck, yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's a funny
He
guy.
was part of Yab Yum back
Yeah,
in the
they
day.
split off.
Oh, did they? I didn't know that.
They did. Yeah. Hey, if Yab Yum's listening, I would love to come on your show
They're
too.
great. They're the best.
Yeah, legitimately. But like when I was on that radio station, like I had a whole event, like, listen, I'm going to be on the radio around this time, tune in, blah, blah, blah. Here's the Facebook Live. More people tuned into the Facebook Live than listen to the radio.
Right.
But they went onto that Facebook Live because they wanted to see me doing the radio.
Right.
Does that?
See, I know, it's weird. It's weird. That's
like
really funny.
It's got like over 600 views now, and I'm like,
never thought about that.
What? Like,
last time I was on Radio Phoenix, it's really funny. Last time I was on Radio Phoenix, they had to pre-record. So I did 2 shows back to back. I did one that was pre-recorded, that was just me, and they had to pre-record me specifically because last time I was on there with my band, we got the radio station in trouble.
Oh yeah,
by telling some spicy stories.
Ooh.
And then so when I came back to promote Getting Stoked, they had to pre-record my episode. But then because I was a good boy, I got to do another episode live that night, and then I was like I was another guest co-host for Chuck, and when I was on there was like a little cut in between, and 0 Degrees North came in as the guest, who are really good friends of mine.
Sure.
And so they came in, and I didn't realize that the Facebook Live was still on in between songs.
Yeah.
So I started talking real candidly with my friends at 0 Degrees North. And I was talking to Garrett, the singer, and he had just tried acid for the first time not too long ago. And he was like, I think he was like 17 when we were hanging out having this conversation.
Okay, well that's around the time.
Right. So, but he was still living at home and stuff. He hadn't moved out yet. And
what a time to try LSD.
His family was like watching the thing, and I didn't realize that. So here's what happened. He and I were just hanging out in the studio talking about acid, and he was telling me his acid story.
Sure.
And then not a minute and a half later, the bassist Ava runs in, and she's like, your grandma's watching right now. I just got a text message. You're talking about fucking acid. And we were like, oh no, I didn't realize that the camera was still on even though we're off air.
I've kind of just made it like a rule to be like a good.
I keep
I'm
getting in
good.
trouble there.
I'm gonna be good.
Terrestrial radio or any radio where I just can't be candid is just
little
not
radio bad boy over here.
It's not a spot for me necessarily.
Yeah, you got your podcast.
Yeah.
This is where you thrive.
Right. This is where I want to be. For sure. And it's funny, but even every single time I've ever been on any kind of radio, I'm always trying to see what I can get away with. Like I'm always like saying something and then looking at the host to see
if they can do it.
Yeah. See if like I'll say something and I'll start to edge towards something and then see if they like move away from it. And I'm like, damn.
Yeah, I always got to be nice on the radio.
That's really that's nice. You're a very nice person.
I try so hard.
I like to provoke. I like to poke.
I could see that. Well, that's a different kind of style of music, though, right?
Exactly,
I'm my Instagram handler, my personal Instagram handler is rockstars.apprentice, but I'm certainly not going to be a rock star anytime soon. If you've heard my music, you know, it's singer-songwriter, it's acoustic, it's sweet.
It is sweet. It's very nice. It's a beautiful good like a really good morning record. Like that's what I want to put on like waking up at 7 a.m. and making breakfast. That's kind of what I want to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of my friends like to put it on in the morning as well. Yeah, so that's actually a good point.
It's perfect for the Spotify morning acoustic.
It's also perfect for like my tagline, which is Ray of motherfucking sunshine, by the way, which I need to change because it turns out when you put that on t-shirts, people don't wear the t-shirts.
Oh, come on.
I know. They're like, I can't wear this.
Yeah.
It's not even spelled out all the way. Whatever.
That's great.
It's okay. It's okay.
You could do something cute and like cover up the fuck with something else.
Well, believe me, I switched out the O with an @ symbol, and then I spelled fuck like fucks, like FUXK.
Okay.
Instead of C.
Right.
And that was like my way of kind of changing it around, but
they're words. Come on.
It was funny because when I was in Bisbee for Side Pony recently, there was like this one girl who's maybe like 13, 14, and she kept coming to like eat. I played 7 shows that weekend. So she came to like every single one of them. And then she was like, can I have a t-shirt? And I had to show her mom the tagline just to make sure she knew that was
That's
there.
nice of you.
Well, you don't want a surprise.
Right. Yeah, that's really sweet. It's, I don't know. I've moved like, I guess I don't really understand the whole like adults who don't wear shirts with bad words on them. It's like
that I don't understand.
Yeah, right.
But I guess I'm also not in a 9-to-5, so
I guess that's true. I'm blessed because I'm in a quote unquote 9-to-5, but we can wear whatever we want. So it's pretty cool.
That makes a difference.
Right. It makes a huge difference. It's hard for me to talk about because I'm like really blessed.
Yeah.
Like I've had like my boss like has a shirt that says like go fuck yourself on it and stuff like that. Like it's totally fine. It's whatever.
Awesome.
So as now, what do you have coming up as far as shows over the next couple months? Do you have anything booked? Anything for 2019 booked?
For 2019, see, like my December is all booked out, but as it stands right now, January, February, I'm mostly working on the Rae Lydia project, getting that up and running and trying to get that moving, working with other artists, musicians, and doing stuff on the back end that nobody likes to do.
You gotta do like a big kickoff show or something.
Oh,
like that.
completely! It's gonna be great. It's gonna be so much fun. And I can't wait to change lives with it because I think that's really needed. But you know, I always like to do Mellow Mondays at Rogue Bar.
Oh,
I was just there this last month, November. Shannon puts that on every month. Monday-ish kind of, and I've been doing it. This is like my sixth time doing it. Where it's, you know, Rogue Bar, Rockstar, you know, but Rockstar's Apprentice.
Right,
something a little bit smaller, something a little bit chiller. And honestly, what's really fun about that is I get to play all of my depressing music that I never get to play.
Why not? Why don't you just play it?
People are always like, man, your stuff is so sad.
Stop worrying about other people.
Stop being so sad.
Just do it. Just do it. Just be sad. If you're sad, be sad.
Yeah.
It's your art.
It is really my art.
You should absolutely be a fascist when it comes to your own art. Like you have to be. Like this is my art. This is what I'm gonna do. The end.
Yeah.
Like you can't pay attention to other people.
I'm learning that as I go on because I'm a great artist, but I'm a terrible businessman.
That's fine.
So I'm working on that.
Yeah. The business portion is. Yeah, as long just don't post great post on people's Instagrams.
God, I hate that. I'm like, hi,
two
bot.
high five. Oh, it's terrible.
What up?
I know.
Yeah.
It's so bad. I challenge them now. Like I've gotten to this thing where like me and my friend Sam, we just like challenge every single time we get them. Like someone posted like nice one, and he just, and he replied nice what.
Nice what?
Like we just like always challenge them from now on. Just like a fun game.
It's not a bad idea.
Just like Russian.
I tend to just like ignore them.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's what I used to do. But I mean, if they're giving you an opportunity, my whole thing is like, if someone's gonna give you an opportunity to try to, because with me, like with me, every single encounter that I have is an opportunity for me to be, how can I be funny? Like how can I make this funny? So that was one of the things that I just like. I completely missed that opportunity for years, and I was like, "Oh, this is perfect. I can just fuck with these people all the time." I do it with the fan and party page too. Like the fan, I'll post like trolly stuff every once in a while. But the best thing is someone offered us a show. Like we've been broken up for almost a year now.
God, that's
people still
so
offer
funny.
People still offer us shows. So someone offered us a show, and I was like, "Yeah, you know, fan and party would absolutely love to play it." But ever since the boating accident, it's been really tough.
The boating accident.
Yeah. So it's like always tragic, but always vague. So it's never specific. It's always just
the
like
boating accident.
Yeah. Ever since the boating accident, and like
in Arizona.
Yeah, right. Or like I love it. I
That's
just love
pretty funny.
It just makes me giggle.
Yeah.
Or like I went on the Instagram recently and was like, We at Fan and Party hope you have a great holiday. So long as you don't wish for us, we hope that you get everything you wish for. And unless you wish for us to get back together, you should have a great time.
Yeah,
like,
that's good.
I kept getting responses like mean, but okay.
Well, people never really want their favorite bands.
Of course
to just,
not.
Like I'm still holding out for Bad Neighbors, and they've been
on
quote unquote hiatus for a while now.
Well, they were Bad Neighbors, and then they were.
Well, they were for a very brief period of time. They were Cellar Door.
Cellar Door, right. Martin's a great songwriter.
Yeah, he really is.
Huh? He's in Paper Foxes now.
He's in
right?
Paper Foxes.
Is he
right
still
now.
in there? Is he still? I don't think he's
I haven't.
still there.
I didn't see him in Bisbee when Paper Foxes was performing.
I think
so
when
no.
CJ was here, he told me he's not in there anymore.
But they're one of my favorite bands is Paper Foxes.
They're
I love
amazing.
them. They're
I love
so
them.
good. I do miss Bad Neighbors, you guys.
Right. Bad Neighbors is great. I saw them live, and we played a show with them. I played a show with them in Paper Foxes in backyards like a couple years ago. And it was a really, really good time.
So good. Absolutely.
Yeah, CJ's a pal. I love Paper Foxes.
Mm-hmm. I have a whole list of local bands that I absolutely adore.
We have a killer scene, man.
I know, right?
It's killer out
I
here.
adore it. I adore it. I loved being in Bisbee because it was like because we never get to see each other's shows as musicians and
Right.
artists. Where it's like Friday night, oh yeah, we're all doing something.
Right.
So this was amazing because everything was so close by and everybody was playing multiple shows, so you could catch them here, catch them here.
Bisbee's cool, man. I mean, that's where Doug Stanhope,
It's
the comedian,
magical.
lives. And there's like a bunch of weird stuff. And we were stupid. We got an opportunity to play Bisbee and we turned it down.
How dare?
I didn't know. We had no idea that it was what it was. We just thought we had like these people offering us to play a festival and then not offer to hook us up with anywhere to stay.
Yeah.
And which is fine, but
When it's Bisbee.
at the time it wasn't. At the time we were like, okay, we just got off a little road trip. We don't want to really go out anywhere right
Sure.
now. If we're going to go somewhere, if we're not going to
Sure.
get paid,
Yep.
then we at least want to get put up somewhere, and they were willing to do neither.
If you bring merch, you get paid. Believe me.
Yeah, I'm
I
sure.
I made quite a bit that
Right.
weekend.
But we didn't know. We had no idea.
Yeah.
We didn't know what Side Pony was. We didn't know what the
Yeah.
Bisbee thing was. We just had some random person email us being like, yeah, you should drive like 3 hours and then not get paid and stay with us for a few days. And I was
It
like,
might
we're
have
like-
been Anna Meek.
It was Anime, yeah, and she was very cool. I talked to her on the phone
She's
about
a
everything.
badass.
She was super cool. And then we saw all the photos and press
Mm-hmm.
from that. This was in 2015, 2016.
So that was like 3 years ago.
Right.
So yeah, season 5, maybe
Mhm.
season 4 or 5.
So when all the photos came back and New Times and everyone was writing about it, and we saw all of our photos from our friends and we saw the lineup, because we didn't even see the lineup. We had no idea.
Oh yeah.
We saw the final lineup, and that was the first like sink in our stomach. Like, oh, that's really cool. And then we saw the photos, and we were like, fuck. And then she never invited us back, so we just never, which we deserved. So I'm bummed out that I missed that train. And our friends 0 Degrees North are like, fuck, they love them out in Bisbee.
Oh, it's I definitely got new fans while I was there.
I bet.
My favorite moments, because I'm not looking to be like pop. I'm not looking to appeal to absolutely everybody. I'm there to send a specific message to people who are in pain, who have experienced loss, who are in need of healing. And so like a lot of the people who listen to me are like, oh yeah, she sings great. I love her songs, blah, 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 blah. But then I would have those special moments where I would meet, the fans that would come up to me with tears in their eyes and they would go, that really spoke to me.
That's awesome.
And that's what I do it for. And so
That's
I'm
amazing.
so blessed I was able to play this year.
That's awesome. It's so cool. You got to do like a recording or something like that out there.
I really should have been more prepared. I had no idea how prepared I should have been. But next time I'm literally going to like hire someone to just follow me around with a video camera.
Well, tell me about the album.
Yeah.
You're working on an album right
I
now.
am working on an album.
First full length, right?
It is my first full length album. Yeah, my last EP took 2.5 years to, from start to finish, writing and recording, because I was going from home studio to home studio. This time I have all of my music already written out, from the vault. That I've picked and chosen specific ones to go through the theme. The theme of the other one was gravitas, and that means heavy in Latin, and it specifically had to deal with the death of my brother,
Right.
and sort of depression and trying to come out of it. This one is called Lux, and that's Lux. That is Latin for light, like a light bulb. So it's kind of a play on words, but it's basically, from the heaviness into the light.
Right.
And so I'm incorporating music that, yes, there's still going to be my sad songs on there, but there's actually going to be a lot more happy music on there that deals with what we see every day. Feelings for exes, for example, is definitely one of the songs on there. Another one about like, it's okay, we're all just bits of stardust anyway, everything's going to be fine. Yeah. There's this one song though that's called At Least I Look Good in Black, and that's probably one of the heavier hitters on the album.
I love sad songs that have hope in them. That's what makes me cry. Like I guess maybe not, because now that I'm thinking,
makes me cry.
Yeah, now that because I say sad songs with hope make me cry, but then I remember Mount Erie, and that just makes me cry. So,
I Am a Lighthouse by Nickel Creek always makes me cry.
Really?
Yes.
There's some songs, but like I love a sad song that has like a somewhat of a light at the end of the tunnel kind of feeling to it.
Well, then, have you heard Hibernation from Gravitas?
Uh-uh.
Oh, You're in for a treat.
All right,
That
I'll
one's
check
about
it out.
coming out of depression.
I'll open the show with that one. Then.
That would be wonderful.
I'll open. Is that? Did you send that song to me?
I did.
Perfect. Well, that's what we'll open. That's what we'll open the show with.
I sent you only the songs that I have recorded, which is 4 of them.
Perfect. So you guys already heard that. You heard it right at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So, dude, thank you so much for coming over and hanging out
Thanks
with us.
for having me. I
it.
appreciate talking about and I know you're having these installments of getting better.
Yeah,
and
right.
so this whole idea of going from gravitas to lux, from going from heavy to light really plays into that.
It's perfect.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
cannot wait to hear it. I love your hustle. I love how hard you've been working.
Thanks.
I see. I've seen that for quite a while.
I appreciate it.
So keep rocking.
Yeah,
keep on rocking in the free world.
Thanks. It's my first year being a full-time musician, so find me at raylydia.com. If you're interested in the Rae Lydia Project and supporting me there, you can go to the raylydiaproject.com. I did grab that domain. Find me on social media, Rae Lydia. You can find me on all streaming sites for my Gravitas album,
Sweet.
iTunes, Spotify. And then I have a Patreon for my album Lux.
Boom, there you go. Patreon's way to go.
Patreon.com/Rae Lydia.
Perfect. Hell yeah. Thank you so much for coming over.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you everyone for listening. I don't have any special messages for you guys.
Put out Rhetorical after this one.
Put out. Oh yeah.
That's
okay.
that's my baby.
That's
one of my
favorite song?
favorites.
That's your favorite?
It's one of my favorites.
Cool. It sounds good to me. So cool. So there's gonna be 2 songs at the end of this episode, guys. There's gonna be Rhetorical, which she just told us about, and then I also had a song ready to go for the end of this. So I will pull that up right now so that I don't have to do the editing for it later. So the song that is gonna play us out as well is we're gonna do first and Forever sent in a track, and the song is called Chicago, and yeah, so they wrote a really long thing about the song that I'm not gonna read, so but it's good, so listen to it. All right, see you guys later. Thank you so much for listening. Get stoked.
I've been counting cigarettes, I've been counting down the seconds since you walked out that goddamn door. You better son haunts my each and every footstep. I can't wait to let you go. She's just as pretty as
does it all go? What does it all become? How do I make it stop? How do I get warm? Do birds and trees have souls? Do only humans sin? So many ways to die and only one to begin. Will I know when I'm going? Will I be able to fly? When I finally go, how will I say goodbye? If I'm born again, I wonder what I'd be. Will I know nothing, or will I remember me? What do they mean when they say my soul is old? Will I still feel I'm young when my skin starts to fold? Will I know when I'm going? Will I be able to fly? When I finally go, how will I say goodbye? The wonders of the universe, they rack my brain. So much distraction from the questions that remain. Ever since we could walk, we thought that we were free. Forget we came from Earth and back to Earth. Will I know when I'm going? Will I be able to fly? When I finally go, will I get to say